So here we are at the Mid-Atlantic Rift at the Bridge of the Continents, with North American plate on the right, Eurasia on the left, the zone, the graben, the deep ocean ridge that splits apart, pops up here above the surface over a mantle hotspot. But as we tour around Iceland, we're reminded how young a lot of our geologic concepts are. So I remember as an undergraduate at Columbia University in the late 1970s, walking around and seeing the incredible National Geographic seafloor map made by Bruce Heason and Marie Tharp, two affiliates of the Lamont Doherty Geological Observatory that was very closely affiliated with Columbia University, where I was studying. And the map was fascinating because down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, there was a mountain range under the water, and people really only came to appreciate plate tectonics in the 60s, when we were able to see that those mountain ranges in the middle of the Atlantic actually had magnetic stripes that could date them as symmetrically spreading apart. So not only was there a mountain range, but we could see the ocean floor actively being produced, as it is here exposed in Iceland. And then in addition, the ocean plates were being consumed along subduction zones. So there's a convey about of very young basaltic rocks that are created at the ridges and consumed by subduction zones, and there's probably not, it's very hard, if it's possible at all, to find old oceanic crust. It just is continually being recycled. However, the continents, because of their more silicic rich and more buoyant nature, can have rocks up to 4 billion years old, because the cratonic rocks float while the basaltic rocks are heavy and recycled. And this whole concept of young oceanic floors being created and recycled along the oceanic ridges really is relatively new in geologic thinking, on the order of just a few decades.
Oh, that's bad. Teraz jakbyśmy lecieli.
Is there a little waterfall over there? ridge all to ourselves. This is our chance to get the real photos. Here we are once again riding the tectonic plates, and what an adventure it is here in southern Iceland. So just off to the south of us is the Atlantic Ocean. This is where the mid-Atlantic ridge that runs all along the Atlantic Ocean comes up over Mantle Plume hotspot, and the ridge that's fantastically famous as the mountains in the deep Atlantic Ocean actually is above ground at this island spot. And here is an exposed outdoor laboratory of the rifting of the mid-Atlantic ridge and the continents. And what we've come to appreciate is there are many rift grabens and that we have a rifting zone. So as the continents continue to spread, North America on my right and Eurasia on my left, as they continue to spread, this rift zone is the boundary between the tectonic plates, and it's an incredibly volcanically active, many volcanoes, lava flows, and the continents are continuing to spread as Iceland gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. So if you come here, this is a good photo. Come here.
Hey, Linda Stern back here again. I see some volcanic features right here. Look at this. Ropey lava. This is not very old. This is practically yesterday off the mid-Atlantic rift.
So here we are at Thingvellir, the national park, and what we're seeing in the northern end of the Thingvellir lake, which is a huge lake, are a lot of northeast southwest trending fractures, maybe north-northeast, south-southwest. These are all part of the rift, so there's a lot of rift grabens, and on the far there's a really long linear fracture And we're going to go closer to explore that as we go to the visitor center. And up against that big fracture is where used to be the parliament for Iceland. And we're going to look at some of the opposing grabens, or opposing fractures that form a lot of downdrop grabens. But that big fracture over there is a very important fracture, and you can see it extends for a really long way along the Lake Thingvellir. So here we are at Thingvellir Visitor Center, and in front of us is a major north-northeast, south-southwest trending fall. And where we're standing on the west side is North America. And in this big, huge graben and valley, on the far distance, there are structures trending the same way, but they're dipping the opposite way. And so those are fractures that are on the other side. And we normally would think of Eurasia being on the other side of the rift, but at this location in southern Iceland, it's believed that Hreppa, H-R-E-P-P-A, is a little microcontinent, is actually separating North America, Hreppa, the microplate, and then Eurasia on the other side. As we go north in Iceland, this little microplate, if it really exists, it's part of a transform and crossover relay fault. That doesn't exist. You go from North America directly to Eurasia. So also in this Rift Valley, there are several down faults on each side, and this lake was huge, and it is huge, but the northern part of it filled in 10,000 years ago. Lava flows from the north began to fill in the lake. So a lot of this lava plain that we see to the north of us has been filled in. So as we look over to the east, and that would be across the Hreppa microplate to the fractures on the far side, and then as we look to the south, there's a lot of water in Lake Thingvellir, and there's a little island from a volcanic eruption out in the distance, a small island in the water, surrounded by water in the lake. That was a little eruption in 2000. So it's an incredible rift graben, a microplate, lava flows along the rift zone and filling it in with water, and I'm sure some melted glaciation as well.
Martine et Bruno, c'est un petit peu ça qu'ils ont chez eux.
So here we are at Lake Thingvellir at the National Park, and we're at the place where the lawgivers of the 900-year AD, the Icelandic history, and there are major linear rifts, north-northeast trending faults this is North America, and there's a major rift graben. There's on the other side, there are faults cutting the opposite way of this. So this whole rift graben has fallen down, and this was all filled with water, but volcanoes in the north filled up the northern part of the lake 10,000 years ago, and then 2,000 years ago there was some volcanic activity in the south and a little island formed. But this is Lake Thingvellir, and here is the historic place, and here are the opposite dipping fractures of the rift graben on either side of the rift graben. This is a good view right here. As soon as that guy goes. Okay, don't go too far because you can rip up.